the objective of the video that we have today is to, as stated here, is to create transfer function, right? Create transfer function of a rotational system without gearing. So what is a rotational system? So let's say imagine that we have a pretty long shaft, right? Let's say imagine you have a quite long shaft that is mounted on two bearings on each of their sides. So here are the bearings, and in the middle is the shaft that is mounted. And imagine that on the left hand side you have a torque that is executed to the left side, torque called TT. And so what happened is we consider that the shaft is very long, that it can be discretized into two parts, where the first part on the left, you would say that it has a certain mass, therefore a certain inertia of J1, and the part on the right, therefore, has another inertia of J2, right? So when you rotate it with a torque T, what happened is on the left-hand side, you have a certain position, angular position of theta 1, T. And the same thing for the right-hand side. As we consider it is very long, so therefore there would be some torsion in the middle. The torsion makes that the angular position of the left-hand side would be a bit different from the angular position of the right-hand side. So there's another position, angular position of J2 that I would call theta 2 T, right? So this is an example of a rotational system. So how do we model this in schematic diagram? So you have, so the bearings are basically the mass, right? So we start with the left-hand side, so the bearing on the left-hand side. And the contact between the bearing and the contact between the bearing and the shaft is a kind of viscous friction, right? A viscous friction, what is it? It is friction that is proportional to the speed. So the faster you go, then the higher will be the force of the friction. So it can be modeled by a damper. So I call it as D1. I call it damper 1 with a coefficient of damping D1. And then you have, of course, your shaft, your initial J1. And then in between J1 and J2, what happened is you have a torsional force. So what is a torsional force? Torsional force is a force that the more you have angular difference, the more you will create the force. So it is something that is similar to a torsion, spring force, right? So we model it as a spring with a spring coefficient K. And then on the right hand side, we also have a viscous friction. Now we have D2, and you have the bearing on the right hand side. So now the rotational system, the physical rotational system that we have on our left is now modeled as such, right? So what is the objective? The objective again is to create the transfer function. So in order to create the transfer function, there are the steps that you by now already know. So the first step is, of course, to identify. So this is something that we've seen a lot. Identify what is the input and what is the output that you want to observe, right? And then secondly is to do your FBD. So why do we do FBD? Because we know that input and at the end, a transfer function is basically a relation. So transfer function GS is the relation between the input and the output. So let's say I call it the input as XS, the input as YS in frequential domain, of course. GS is basically, if you do remember, GS is basically the output over the input, right? So in order to do so, we have to find the relationship between the input and output. So that's why we write an FBD, right? FBD, and then you write down the equation that relates between XS and YS. And then the third one would be to transform that equation into frequential domain. And finally is to write down basically isolate the equation, isolate XS with ys and then write the equation gs, right? So those are the steps that we need to follow regularly to construct a transfer function, right? So let's do this. So we start with the first one. What is the input of this system? So the input, yeah, I forgot to put the forces and the angular position. So we have an input of torque Tt on J1, and then it creates a displacements of angular displacements of theta 1 and angular displacement of theta 2t, right? So just to begin with, we know that here, how many degree of freedom do we have? We have 2 degree of freedom. 2 degree of freedom means we can have 2 outputs, right? So the input is naturally Tt, the top, right? So if I were to remind you, input is basically the thing that is controllable, that you give to the system so that at the end you can observe its behavior, and the output is the behavior that is to be observed. So now we have 2 output that can be considered. It's either the angular position, the resulting angular position of theta 1, or the position of second mass theta 2. And of course, as we have seen in previous classes, you can also find the variation of theta 1 in theta 2, which is theta 1 dot and theta 1 double dot. The same as well for theta 2. Okay, so we've now defined what is the input and what is the output. Next, what do we do? So we do the FBD. So how do we do the FBD? How many FBD would we have? We know that we have 2 degree of freedom, so there will be two output and 2 FBD as well. So the FBD is done on the initial, on the mass. Let's say I'll take another color. Let's say we do the first one for J1. Right? Let's say we have J1. And then the second one will be an FBD on J2. What are the forces that we have on J1 and J2? Okay, so on J1, we know that we have the input force, input torque of T. And then I will also note here the direction of the rotation, output theta 1 T. So we have input force of T, and the other forces that react on J1 are, if we see here, you have that is directly connected to it, that is D1, there is a force due to its inertia J1, and a force due to the spring K. So all the forces basically are what we call impedances or resistant forces that resist to the movement of the input. So we can put in the opposite direction, you'd have the force, the first one would be J1. So the force created by the inertia is J1 theta 1 double dot, right? And then the force created by the damper, what is it? The coefficient is d1 theta 1 dot, right? So because viscous friction is proportional to speed, and then finally you'd have the forces created by the spring. So now the forces created by the spring. This is something that need more attention, because we know when you look at the spring created force due to a certain displacement, right? And there's 2 displacement that's involved here. The spring can create force when theta 1 moves, and the spring can also create force when theta 2 moves, right? So the force equals to K multiplied by 2 displacement. The first one is theta 1, and the second one is minus theta 2, right? So basically there is how many forces? 1 input forces, and 4 resisting or impedance forces, which is J1 theta 1 double dot, D1 theta 1 dot, and K theta 1, another one minus K theta 2, right? So that is for J1, the FBD on J1. Okay, now let's go to FBD on J2. On J2, you don't have any input forces, right? If you look into J2 here, there is no input forces. The only forces that is, so I'm gonna take another color. Let's say I'll take green. There is the force J2, the force created by inertia J2, the force created by damper D2, and the force created as well by the spring K. But the input T is not affected directly on J2. So J2 won't be, well, the top won't be in FBD of J2, right? So let's see, what are the forces? First, I will note the direction of rotation, theta 2. So the forces are all countering forces, resistances, or what we call impedances. So the first one will be the force created by the inertia, J2 theta double dot, but now it is theta 2, not theta 1, right? And then you have D2 theta dot is also theta 2. And then finally, you have the force of the spring, K. And the spring also created force from displacements as we've seen before in FBD1. It created force from theta 2 and theta 1 as well. So it's K multiplied by theta 1 minus theta 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4 forces on FBD on J2 and 5 forces on FBD J1. So now it's easy. What we need to do now is to write the FBDs, the equation that come out from your FBD. Okay, so there will be equation. Now I change back to black markers. So the equation number 1 due to FBD number 1 is you'd have T equals to J1 theta 1 double dot plus D1 theta 1 dot plus K theta 1 minus theta 2, right? So that's the first equation. And the second equation is, so 0 equals to J2 theta 2 double dot plus D2 theta 2 dot plus K multiplied by theta 2 minus theta 1, right? So now we have done the second step, right, which is writing down the equation that come out from the FBD. So next step will be to transform it into frequential domain, right? Into an equation of that depends on S plane, not that depending on times, but depending on the frequential domain S plane. So what's the explanation? I think we've seen the explanation before why we do this, because if we would like to isolate the output, which is theta, from the input T, what happened in this equation is you have a different form of theta. You have theta in its simple form theta T, but you have also first derivation and second derivation form. If you want to isolate them, it can be done, of course, using ordinary differential equation. But when the equations get bigger and when you have more degree of freedom, it will be more and more complex. So the easier path would be to change it into frequential domain, because then you can factorize the theta naturally in frequential domain. So Laplace transform it into frequential domain. So by now, I think you have known your Laplace table. Theta t becomes theta s equals to J1. So theta double dot become s square theta s plus d1 s. So the theta is theta 1. d1 s theta 1 s and plus k is theta 1 s minus theta 2 s, right? And then second equation becomes 0 equals to J2 theta 2, I'm sorry, I forgot s square. So it's J2S square theta 2S plus D2S theta 2S plus K. So now it's theta 2S minus theta 1S. Right? So these are the two equations that come from your FBD, but now in frequential domain, right? So now that we have the equation, the next thing that we need to do is to isolate the, let me see if I can have another pen. Now we need to do is to isolate the output, which is theta, right? From the input t. Okay, so now that we have two equations and we have two unknowns. So the equations are, the first equations come from FBD1, equation 2 comes from FBD2, and the two unknowns are theta 1 and theta 2. We can do, we can now write two metrics that will help us solving the two equations, right? So let's write down the metric. So there will be a huge coefficient matrix in the first place, and then there will be a second column matrix that represents your unknown, which is theta 1 and theta 2, and on the other side of the equation you have the solution, which is, now we have in the first equation it's Ts, and in the second equation is 0. So what we need to find out now is the the coefficient matrix, which is the multiplier of theta 1 and multiplier of theta 2 that leads to the first equation and second equation. So the first line comes from first equation, second line of the matrix comes from second equation. So let's see, what is multiplied by theta 1 plus another equation that's multiplied by theta 2 equals to the first equation, which is Ts. So the multiplier of theta 1, we have, if we look here, we have J1S squared, right? J1S squared plus we have D1S, and then plus we have K theta 1, right? Okay, so it's J1S squared plus D1S plus K. And then what is multiplied by theta 2? We have minus K. And for the second equation, the multiplier of theta 1, that's only minus K. And the coefficient for theta 2, you have J2S squared plus D2S plus K. So J2S squared is in here, D2S and K, right? So you have this equation now. So this is the equation that you need to solve in order to find theta 1s equals 2 and theta 2s equals 2, right? So the way to solve it, so I'll leave it to you for now to find out how to solve it. It is basically using the usual method, let's say, of metric resolution, the thing that we can call as, they usually call as Cramer's rule, right? So if you want to find theta 1s is basically the determinant of I would call it determinant 1 over the determinant of the system. So you have to find out how to calculate this. And then theta 2s is the second determinant over the determinant of the system. So if I want to recall it a bit, the determinant of the system comes from the matrix of the coefficient, right? So determinant is basically, if I call this as A, this as B, this as C, and this as D, determinant is A multiplied by B minus C multiplied A multiplied by D minus C multiplied by B. So that's what this determinant means. And for the determinant 1s is when you replace. So for determinant 1, when you replace the first column of the coefficient matrix with with the solution. So it becomes ts0 minus k j square j2s square plus d2s plus k. So that's determinant 1. And for determinant 2, it's when you replace the second column with the solution, ts0. Right? So once you have t1s and theta 1s and theta 2s, so at the end you will have theta 1s. So I'll leave it to you to do the calculation. At the end you have theta 1s equals, it's something in function of all the coefficient that you have inside, right? And you have theta 2s as well as something that's in coefficient of all the parameters that you have inside the coefficient. And somewhere you have t inside here. So at the end, what you need to write is to find, let's say I call the first transfer function as g1s. What you need to find is to write down theta 1s over ts. And you can also find the second transfer function g2s, which is theta 2s over ts. So what this transfer function means, let us observe the behavior of theta 1 due to the input of t, and the second transfer function, let us observe the behavior of theta 2 when we put an input of t dot t. So that's all on the method how to construct our transfer function of a rotational system without gearing. And here we have an example of a 2 degree of freedom. So I recap again. So you need to identify what your input and output is. So and then you need to do your FBD, right, over here. And once you do FBD, you need to write the equations and then transform it into frequential domain. And then from there, you have, if you have 2 degree of freedom, it means you have 2 equations with 2 unknowns. So the thing that you need to do next is to solve that equation in order to find what theta 1 equals to, what theta 2 equals to, and then at the end write the transfer function g1s and g2s, which is the output theta 1 over the input t. And the second, if you have more than 1 degree of freedom, so you could have other transfer function as well. For example, here is theta 2 over t. So that's all for now, and then we will have another video for other construction of transfer function. Thank you.